HOA vandalized my ranch and forged papers, so I took them to court and crushed them. Have you ever poured your entire soul into a dream, only to have it threatened by someone else's petty tyranny? I'm Elias Thorne, a retired veteran who found peace and purpose building a small, sustainable ranch. My evergreen homestead was more than just land. It was a sanctuary for rescued animals, a source of organic produce for local markets, and the quiet culmination of a lifetime of hard work. Then, Brenda Sterling arrived. Brenda, the newly elected president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association, a sprawling, manicured community bordering my rustic property, saw my ranch not as a haven, but as an eyesore. She was all sharp angles and designer clothes, with a voice that grated like gravel. Her first official act, it seemed, was to march onto my property, uninvited, and declare my beloved homestead in violation of Willow Creek's aesthetic guidelines. She demanded I remove my rescue animals, a mix of chickens, goats, and a few elderly donkeys, and replace my unconventional organic farming methods with something more visually appealing, something more in line with the community's upscale image. Her eyes, cold and dismissive, swept over my weathered barns and flourishing fields as if they were blight. It was clear. She viewed my life's work with utter contempt, a stain on her perfect, pristine world. I tried to be reasonable. I explained, calmly, that my ranch was outside the HOA's direct jurisdiction, compliant with all county agricultural zoning laws, and provided vital organic produce to several local food banks. I even offered to plant a dense, natural barrier of trees along our shared property line, a screen that would grow to obscure my unsightliness. Brenda merely scoffed, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows arching in disdain. "Mr. Thorne," she purred, her voice dripping with condescension, "your endeavors are simply unacceptable. Willow Creek is an exclusive community, and we will not have our property values diminished by a farm." Her words hung in the air, heavy with a self-importance that bordered on delusion. Weeks later, the true nightmare began. I awoke one crisp morning to a scene of utter devastation. Sections of my sturdy perimeter fence, built with my own hands, lay splintered on the ground. My carefully laid irrigation lines, vital for the summer crops, were severed, gushing water onto the parched earth. A small, newly planted orchard, part of a grant-funded initiative to supply fresh fruit to a local food bank, had been systematically trampled. Young saplings snapped like twigs. Worst of all, several of my beloved heritage chickens, rare breeds I'd painstakingly nurtured, were gone. Crude signs, emblazoned with the Willow Creek HOA logo, were hammered into the wrecked fence posts, declaring the land was being reclaimed for community beautification. My heart sank, a cold dread seeping into my bones. This wasn't just an annoyance. It was an act of pure, malicious vandalism. As I surveyed the wreckage, a glint of white caught my eye. Tucked beneath a broken fence post was a discarded clipboard, bearing the unmistakable Willow Creek HOA emblem. On it, meticulously organized, were what appeared to be official annexation documents for my property. My blood ran cold. The papers detailed a retroactive rezoning of my land, bringing it under the HOA's direct control, complete with forged signatures of county officials and crudely doctored maps that extended Willow Creek's boundaries to encompass my entire ranch. This wasn't just trespass, it was fraud, a brazen attempt to steal my land out from under me. And it wasn't just my personal loss. The trampled orchard was a critical part of a grant I'd secured to fight food insecurity in our county, and the missing chickens were part of a local conservation effort. Brenda's petty vendetta had escalated into a crime with far-reaching consequences. Armed with the damning evidence, I decided to confront Brenda directly. I learned she had called an emergency HOA meeting, ostensibly to announce the new community park, a park, I realized with a surge of fury, that was to be built on my land. I arrived, documents clutched in my hand, just as Brenda, radiating smug triumph, began her presentation. I interrupted her, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Brenda," I stated, holding up the forged documents, "I believe these belong to you." Her smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of annoyance. She quickly recovered, her eyes narrowing. "Mr. Thorne, I have no idea what you're talking about. This is a private HOA matter. You are trespassing." She tried to dismiss me, to manipulate the other HOA members with practiced ease, painting me as a disgruntled, delusional old man. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of disruption we are trying to avoid. But just as she was about to call for security, a young woman, Maya, whom I recognized as a resident who often bought produce from my stand, stood up from the back row. She was an aspiring investigative journalist, it turned out, and she'd been quietly documenting Brenda's questionable practices for weeks. "Actually, Ms. Sterling," Maya said, her voice clear and firm, "I think Mr. Thorne has a point." She held up her phone, its screen displaying a video. The room fell silent as Maya played a clip of Brenda, under the cloak of darkness, directing a small crew to tear down my fence, her face illuminated by a flashlight, a triumphant smirk on her lips. Another clip showed Brenda at a private dinner, boasting about handling the eyesore ranch and how it would open up new opportunities. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Before Brenda could even stammer a denial, the double doors burst open. A local news crew, tipped off by Maya, streamed in, cameras rolling, lights glaring. Behind them, my environmental lawyer, Sarah Jenkins, a woman known for her quiet ferocity and pro bono work for community causes, stepped forward. "Brenda Sterling," Sarah's voice resonated with calm authority, "you are facing charges of criminal trespass, felony vandalism, grand larceny, and federal fraud for the misuse of grant funds. We also have evidence of a conspiracy to commit land fraud." Brenda's face, once so composed, drained of all color. Her jaw went slack, her eyes darting wildly. She stammered, then erupted into a desperate, incoherent rant, blaming uncooperative rural types, misunderstandings, and her vision for a better community. It was a pathetic display of a woman cornered. Then, Maya delivered the final, crushing blow. "And Ms. Sterling," she added, her voice cutting through Brenda's desperate cries, "perhaps you'd like to explain the secret deal you made with Sterling Developments to sell off this newly acquired land for luxury condos. A deal that would have netted you a substantial personal commission, all under the guise of community beautification." The developer, it turned out, was a distant cousin of Brenda's, and the entire HOA expansion was a thinly veiled land grab, a scheme to line her own pockets. The fallout was swift and brutal. Brenda was immediately stripped of her HOA presidency, her reign ending in public humiliation. The police, already on the scene, began a formal investigation. Elias and Sarah filed a massive lawsuit, seeking not only damages for the destruction of my property and the loss of my crops, but also for fraud and emotional distress. The story went viral, Brenda Sterling becoming a national meme for HOA tyranny, her carefully constructed image crumbling into dust. Her wealthy friends and social circles, once so eager to bask in her reflected glory, publicly distanced themselves, fearing association with a pariah. The developer, terrified of the legal repercussions and public backlash, immediately severed all ties, leaving Brenda utterly isolated. She lost her position, her reputation, her social standing, and faced ruinous legal battles that would likely strip her of everything she held dear, including her dream home in Willow Creek Estates. Her karma was a bitter, public spectacle. I felt a profound sense of vindication, a quiet triumph that justice had been served. But there was also a lingering sadness for the lost time, the stress, and the stark reminder that even in the most idyllic corners of the world, greed and petty ambition can fester, threatening to destroy everything good. I focused on rebuilding my ranch, now with the overwhelming support of the community, who had seen through Brenda's veneer and rallied behind me. In a world where power can corrupt and ambition can blind, where do we draw the line between community improvement and outright oppression? When faced with such injustice, what would you have done?